You're listening to Chicago Stories, a podcast from City Hall featuring the stories of everyday Chicagoans, as told to Mayor Rahm Emanuel.
We're here on Chicago Stories with Jane Sachs, and she's the president, executive director of Project And. What is Project And?
Oh, you said it right, which is fantastic. So Project And is an organization, an arts organization, where we collaborate with artists to create new models of cultural participation with social impact. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is, like, we create initiatives where you can bring your whole self and your whole voice to it. And through that participation and experience, you think differently about yourself in the world and how you inhabit it. And so
Do you like working with any particular artists? Meaning, not by name, but like art form. Dance over music, visual arts versus the word. No, you got to say something. People don't see you shaking.
I'm like, you're asking me to name names.
No, I said no. This is not the McCarthy hearing.
I come to City Hall and like you say.
Have you no
names.
decency, Jane Sachs? No, I'm not asking names, but art form. Given your background, do you have a preference for when you say bring the whole artist? Is it easier working with that? Not a dancer, that a person that's really good at that is a writer. I'm just asking generically.
Well,
not
it's actually like bringing your whole person to it. So, one of the things that I really believe deeply is that.
Can you name names though? No. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I was interrupting. Keep going.
I mean, at Project And, we work in all the mediums, right? Mm-hmm. So we work in music and dance and literature and visual arts and theater and everything, film. But I think that, I don't pick a medium over another one, because for me, it's really about the fact that kind of art and culture and poetry is kind of the pinhole through which I see the world and understand it. And so it's the thing that makes me understand the connections between everything and how it really refers to the and.
Well,
it's about the ambition.
For the listener, when you were working on a project, what was the one that was most illuminating? You had one assumption, and in that project with an artist, since we don't want to name names, that you found that was something you hadn't really thought about or looked at it from that perspective. What was the most kind of illuminating to you in that project?
It's, of course, I'm not going to answer your question, but no, I'm joking. No.
I feel like it's one of my press conferences on the other side. I'm not going to answer one of the reporters' questions.
There's 3 things I'm going to say, and I'm not naming names. Part of what my work is to always be on a learning curve. So I'm always doing something I haven't done. It's part of what is so exciting about what I get to do. I now have people who send their kids to me and they say, I want to do what you do. Now, what is it that you do? Because unlike you, I don't have a noun attached to my name, right? I'm not a mayor, a lawyer,
People use other, sometimes people use adjectives for my name too.
Sometimes, no.
No, but I mean, so let me say this. So have you discovered an artist in the process that you thought, I didn't know that person, that was really because of Project And, that's somebody I want to keep my eye on?
Yeah, always.
Like who?
So part of what we do is we create these really long-term collaborations and partnerships with artists. Sometimes they're famous, sometimes they're not, sometimes they're young, emerging, but it's always somebody who's willing to try something new. So they're also experimenting and taking risks as much as I am with them. So somebody like Lynn Nottage, a Pulitzer Prize-winning playwright, she was a fellow at the institute that I ran at Columbia College and wrote Ruin, which won the Pulitzer, and we collaborated on a lot of kind of engaged programming. And then when we started Project And, as part of her play Sweat about Reading, Pennsylvania, and what was happening to American cities, we developed this multidisciplinary installation in Reading, Pennsylvania that was built on all the stories of the residents. And it was in the abandoned train station. Reading is a train station on Monopoly. So it's so iconic, right? And here it was abandoned. And so part of it that's so illuminating is that I'm on a learning curve. The artists I'm collaborating with are also on a learning curve. So she doesn't need me to write the play. But through our collaboration, she was willing to take these risks and do something. And then Politico chose it as one of the best things in 2017, right? Like, because what it did was it talked about all of the issues that are happening in American cities in a way that nobody had. And so those
Both through
are
art
kinds of
as
things.
well as through the installation, the play, as well as
And participation. So kind of going back to participation, which for me is that, democracy promises one thing and one thing only, and that is equitable participation. That's it. Art and culture has this unique ability to deliver on that promise.
at its best.
Sometimes, best.
Sometimes when it's not at its best, it actually falls short of that goal. So,
Yeah,
as
and also,
democracy does,
right?
fall
And
short
when
of
we're
that
at
goal.
our best, it only
Right.
reflects how good we are, right? And the kind of conversations we want to have.
Well, let me ask you a question. You grow up sitting in the back seat with your dad and Studs Terkel, and given what you just said about Reading, do you think you could have done that without kind of that background of kind of the voices of Chicago that you and your dad?
Yeah.
I don't know how they dropped you out of that coverage, man. You're like the most influential person in the car.
Yeah, right. I'm like a 10-year-old breathing,
Cigar
secondhand smoke.
I have a law department that can sue for you, okay?
I always say they're like breathe deep, Jano. There's Emmett Till's house.
Right.
Windows are rolled up. No, absolutely could not think and feel and experiment and have the kind of creative ambition I have had I not been raised in Chicago and raised by the people I was raised with. My mother was a public school art teacher in Appleton, Wisconsin. She was in her
Appleton,
early...
Wisconsin. Her and Joe McCarthy.
Well, that's it, right? So she signed a public ad in the newspaper against the hearings, and the people in the town started calling her Mrs. Rosenberg because they had all just been sentenced to death, right? And so this idea that you stand up, that you engage, that you're not a sideliner. My dad always loved that quote of, living a life out loud. And so between them, the art and culture and the politics and the civic engagement.
No, but I was thinking about, like you just did, I didn't mean to interrupt, Jane, but in that individual voice of, basically, I don't want to say Stud's only contribution, but a significant contribution was finding history in everyday people's voices, at their words, at their perspective. And that installation of Reading, Pennsylvania is that. And I'm wondering, obviously that experience with your father and with Studs Terkel must have been very influential in that format.
Huge. Absolutely. And it's exactly what you're saying, which is it's the connective tissue between the monuments. It's the people, the communities, the neighborhoods of this city. That's what really is the richness. And so for me, like, my work is about really adding to the so-called traditional canon voices and experiences that haven't been visible and haven't been there. And that exactly comes from the way my dad lived, the way my mother does. Studs Terkel's example. He was saying, wait a minute, you're the expert on your own life. You are history. There is no history without you. We just didn't actually pay attention. And that's what Reading's about. That's also what Pan is about.
Well, on Pan, and I want to do one kind of shameless plug. Since my administration started Night Out in the Park, it's one of the final performances of Night Out, which is free art in the parks throughout the city of Chicago all summer. And you're going into the Indian summer, part of summer. But talk about Pan. It's going to be at Garfield Park, one of the great treasures of Chicago, which I will tell you a story. I'll say it now. So Amy and I happened to be going to see Shakespeare in the Park in Garfield Park. And it was, they had like 6 performances. And I called Barbara Gaines afterward. I said, that was great. I said, what happened? And that became the genesis of then creating Night Out in the Park, was in Garfield Park. Beautiful.
It's fantastic.
So let's talk about Pan, the opera, and why and what is the story about?
So Pan is a 70-minute opera about the Greek god Pan. It's about love and destruction and creation and power.
Well, that sounds like by 9 a.m. for my life.
That's what I'm saying. It's very relevant to all of our lives, right? And Chicago and the world. And so it was really about, can we develop an opera that is as participatory and socially engaged as the story of Pan. And so Marcus Balter is a composer who I commissioned. He's a Brazilian composer to write Pan. And he wrote this incredible piece. Again, it goes back to this artistic excellence, this idea of you don't dump out artistic excellence to put in social excellence, but they all go hand in hand. And without that kind of engagement, you don't have excellence. And so that's what Pan is really about. It's written for a virtuoso flutist, which is Claire Chase, who's
Some
a
people know
MacArthur.
somebody that went to Sarah Lawrence as a flutist. Do you know anybody that did that?
Is that one?
Go ahead.
I didn't go yet. No. I didn't go as a dancer either.
But go ahead.
I didn't leave as one either. So.
Some of us, for everybody's purpose, Jane and I went to Sarah Lawrence.
It's true.
Okay, enough about Sarah Lawrence. We'll come back to Sarah
Remarkable
Lawrence in another, but talk about so he's the composer.
So Marcus Balter is the composer. Claire Chase is a MacArthur Fellow, and she's also a fellow at Project And. And through our collaboration and kind of our vision of what we wanted her fellowship to be, we came up with this idea of a large-scale community collaborative piece and an opera, and really taking back opera.
So I would say our house is kind of culturally attuned, Amy's mind. I love dance. I cannot access opera. Amy now she goes to dances and enjoys them. But she loves opera. I can't access, and when you think of all the art forms, poetry, a short story, theater, opera to me is the most removed, and you're trying to make it the most democratic. Tell me why you think it's the most democratic.
Well, it used to be.
Or most accessible democratic.
It actually used to be the
think
most
so?
democratic and accessible. It was performed on street corners. It was performed in public. People would just gather. You weren't invited. It was like a public conversation to work out these kinds of issues and talk about issues of democracy, right? And some of the iconic stories. It has only become a kind of rarefied, inaccessible art form. Now, I love opera.
You do love opera.
Well, I love
You must love opera.
I love the drama. Oh, I must.
No, you must. I mean, you picked opera as the art form.
I
So
love the form in terms of this idea of.
it's not a musical; it's opera.
No, it's an opera because it has a text and a story. It has music. It also is large scale. We have 50 community collaborators who work.
50 community collaborators from Garfield Park area or from all
Well,
over
we're
the city?
partnering with the Chicago Park District, with the People's Music School, Chicago West Community Music Center.
Oh, then it is
And so we are bringing kids from, all over the city. There's also a kind of final open call for anyone in the city who wants to participate. This could be your moment to discover your love of opera.
You have to talk to my agent before I do anything.
Talk to Amy.
Yeah, right. Ari. No, so you're doing a final call for it?
Yeah, so anybody in the city can participate. And that's what's also wonderful about it is that it's about creating communities that don't necessarily exist yet. Right? So a lot of the youth in Garfield who go to the Chicago West, they don't know a lot of the youth from People's Music School, Backyards, Albany Park, right? And so we know as a segregated city, like how do you break down those boundaries? How do you create opportunities and reasons and necessity to create community with people you don't know and that you might not be like?
Here is on a different one piece of the thread. I actually think parks, libraries, mass transit, etc., are the only spaces left, and which is why they have to still be public, not commercialized, because that's the only place you can really bring people of all different backgrounds to have a shared common experiences. Pan is at Garfield Park next weekend.
So it's at Garfield Park at the Field House. It's going to start in the Rotunda. And can I tell you what you'll experience?
You're supposed to.
I mean, you will walk into the Rotunda, right? This iconic gold dome. The mosaics and the sculptures.
We don't build them like that anymore.
No, we don't.
Okay. Yeah, we don't.
And it's incredible because it's so iconic about the park systems, right? And bringing these kinds of resources to every community and every neighborhood. And at Garfield, the Garfield Fieldhouse is one of the most animated, engaged places I've ever been. You can play basketball, you can do boxing, you can sing, you can dance. I don't think there's opera yet, but
There is,
it is
next weekend, right?
Right. That's why we're going.
Right.
But it's also about collaborating with the Park District and collaborating with People's Music School and Chicago West. And the idea that everybody brings what they do and together we're creating this experience. And so when you walk in, you'll walk into the rotunda, and the way we tell the story, it starts with the death of Pan. And so Claire will be playing, and you will come into this space, which is a pretty ominous, beautiful space. And then you will be led with musicians who are playing bottles, and they're playing tuned wine glasses, and they're playing ocarinas and triangles. They're chanting a secret ancient language, and then they're leading you into a space where the rest of the opera will happen. It's really like a secret communal experience. It's
And
quite
it's next
moving.
Friday or Saturday?
It's the 5th and 6th. So Friday
Starting at
night
what
at
time?
7 and Saturday at 3 p.m. for a matinee.
Okay, and it's free. I like
It's
to
free.
remember that's what our night out on the park
Free
is.
and open.
Right, free and open,
And that's
accessible
how
to
we
everybody.
try to raise enough money to do that for everything we do. Or
Well, that's what we do also with Night Out on the Parks. It's always, all you got to bring is a lawn chair or a blanket. That's all you got to have for that effort. Now, what is the root piece you think about opera? This is scratching my itch
You're
because
going back.
I can't, yes, because I think as a dancer, I find it the hardest art form to find access to, and you find it the most accessible.
No, I don't find it the most accessible at all. I think that why we chose opera for Pan is because of the origins of opera.
You didn't want to do it as a play.
No, it's about playing music together. It's about what happens through the things we do together. I was saying to somebody recently that there are things that we do alone and that we have to do alone, but there are certain things we can't create unless we're creating them together. And you have to think of opera as a form that was a public conversation, right? And the idea that people could participate and could shout things, from the sidelines and could engage in the conversation.
That sounds like...
You'd actually really love it in the old Greek days.
No, it sounds like a Jewish meal with my family. People yelling from the sidelines,
It's
walking
an opera.
by. There
You're
it is.
not a musical.
Yeah,
You're an opera.
Or an opera. It's a little more tragic than that. You go to school in New York. I went to school. We went to Sarah Lawrence. I'm sure you could have gotten lured to the seduction of New York. Why did you stay in Chicago?
Well, I came back, and I've lived lots of other places in Bombay and spent a lot of time in South Africa, New York, New Orleans. Chicago is a city that is really, it's the real definition of an urban center. It's the good, bad, and the ugly. It's the dimension. It's the possibility, the idea of who we want to be. It's a place that lives in all tenses of the verb, past, present, and future. So it's not a place that just hangs on to its history. It's not a place that is just about the moment, and being in the it city or place.
It always pulled you back, didn't it?
I love it. I really love it. And I love it because it also pains me a lot. It's a hard place to be. And as you know, it really has the real issues and problems that people are really struggling with.
Well,
And
that's also what makes it can surprise you on the upside and it can disappoint you on the downside.
Absolutely. But that's like a great relationship, right? Is that it challenges you. It says, okay, you can't think about this the same way. Or
Do you think you could have done your art form project, Anne, in New York?
No, I actually had a couple offers to take, kind of a center to other places, and I really felt like Chicago was the place. So even though we collaborate all over the country, and Pan was in New York, and I think we're going to go to Ramallah, we're going to Brazil,
You're going to go to Ramallah
Mexico.
with it?
Yeah, I was there on a trip in June.
There's a great place in Jaffa you should look up, a cultural place that I think you'd get it.
Oh, I'd love to.
I saw a Beersheba dance company there with my daughter, and I think that would be a space that based on what you just, if I got a mind's eye image of what Pan is, I think you'd find a great space there.
Well, I think, and that's the other thing, is that Pan takes on the flavor and the character of where it's performed and where it's engaged. So this is very much Chicago. It's directed by, Doug Finch. Levi Lorenzo is the music designer. And Lucy Smith, who is an artist and vocalist, will be embodying Searings.
Let me ask you, is it hard to bring everybody together and find cohesion that way?
Can I ask you that question?
No, it's very easy to get city council. Some people think it's a little bit, but I mean, different headstrong artists who start with the idea that they really are collaborationists, and they may not be.
Well, I think, it's like...
No, because as somebody who did, not choreography, and you got to coordinate music, lighting.
Absolutely.
The outfit, everybody says they want to work together.
I think what it is you have to remember, and again, I go back to it's a great relationship where you create something third. It's not just about you and this other person, it's about this whole other thing. And so if an artist comes saying, hey, we're going to do it my way, then it's non-collaboration, right? But if everybody, like a great ecology, right, where things are equitable, they're not equal, right? So in a great ecology, you don't choose water over oxygen, like you need both. Right? And that's great collaborations where you're saying, hey, Doug has this incredible vision about the way it feels and looks, and Marcos wrote music that is so complicated for Claire, but also there's a way for other people to enter. And
is this, Pan, the first time you've done something with Night Out in the Parks, or have you worked on other art form?
Over the years, but not for a long time. So I'm really excited about it. And it reminds me of a story. My dad actually grew up across from Garfield Conservatory.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, and so I'd been going to Garfield since I was a kid, and to Humboldt Park, and which, was unusual, as you know, for someone to grow up in Chicago and really understand the whole city. North Side, and then my parents moved us to Evanston. Be part of Integrate on Aldine.
Okay, we were at Winona and Broadway.
Yeah, so... Yeah, not far. But my dad used to talk about how when it was so hot, everybody would bring out their sleeping bags and sleep on the grassy medians, right? And now here, Night Out in the Park is all you need is a blanket and have everybody come out.
Did you ever think of Humboldt Park's facility versus Garfield Park's?
I thought about Garfield a lot because I feel like it has a lot of the challenges and disinvestment, and it also has a lot of the gems, right? And so what does that mean about a community that has such richness in its people and its leadership, and then also really suffers from a lot of challenges and disinvestment? And so Garfield just felt like all of that came together with the park, and that it was really a perfect place to be.
One of the things I was proud of, when we bring all these big national sports things, so I was there last weekend. So when we had the Laver Cup, they paid for redoing the 4 tennis courts at Garfield Park. And so we've done, I think, the football field, the soccer field, and the baseball fields, and now the tennis courts all there. It's a great...
That's incredible.
So tell one quick thing about Working America, the project.
So Working in America is really picking up on Studs Terkel's brilliance. I look back and realized it had been exactly 40 years, in 1973, that he wrote the book. And I thought, I want to talk about when did we lose the conversation about the worker and how we feel about what we do all day. And so I got the rights to all the interviews that he did for the book Working. Nobody had ever heard them. We went back and found the people who were alive. We did a series on NPR, 12-part series. And then Lindsay Dario, Pulitzer Prize winning photographer, and I crisscrossed the country. I chose about 28 individuals, and we used Studs Terkel's questions. That must have been hard. It was amazing. It was very hard.
To pick the 28
it was really
out
hard.
of... Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was like 18 states, but you got a whole country, and you've got to have people who represent so much, but really remarkable. And actually Gary Briner was in the original book and is also in the exhibition. And then also you can add your own working story. I would love you to do that, to go to working.org and you will answer questions that Studs Terkel asks, like, what do people not know about the work you do? how do you feel about it? I mean, it was really who modeled work in your life. And it was really picking up on Studs' brilliance, but it's really saying we want to participate in our own stories, right? And it's such a Chicago way of saying, okay, wait, tell me how this happened, right? Tell me, how'd you get from Maxwell to Army and Lou's to Lincoln Park to, right? And work is the thread that runs through all of our lives.
So Mike Kelly, head of the Park District, and I were talking about, since Night Out in the Parks has been more successful, we did about 100 events our first year, and now it's 1,200.
That's what you call small 100.
Right.
I know.
Right, well, it was 100 different, but we ended up, so we're thinking about in the winter months, using the Garfield Parks to humble our treasures, Douglas Park, and doing 2 or 3 shows, but all winter they go to the treasures. And so you kind of, as a way to, again, keep the Park District reinvented, new, and doing 4 things, and just those 4 will all perform at all one of our treasures.
I think that's fantastic. We would love to be part of that.
It's just that we're banning opera. Is that okay with you?
You got me attached to opera. It's like the first opera I've ever done.
I don't know why I'm fixated on this. I've been to opera.
It wasn't the thing I thought you were going to fixate on.
I think on a lot of other things. Do you like theater?
Yeah, I love theater.
We just saw a great play.
Yeah.
The Court Theater. There's a great theater town.
It's an incredible theater town. It's such a rich place for art and culture and experimentation. And there's things that you just couldn't do anywhere else. And try. I mean, obviously, like this Working in America built off of Studs Terkel, we opened it at the Harold Washington Library. It's a working city. It's Studs City. It's about telling your own story, right? Then it's gone to the Aspen Library in Oakland. It's now in St. Louis. But it makes so much sense that it started here. And that's why theater also, I think there's a love of story and narratives in a place like Chicago. We're
going to have something, this is our year at the Chicago Theater, but we're going to make in short order a new announcement about some more original works to be done.
Do you want to name names?
I will after Friday. So I got a fast round for you. You ready?
Okay.
Cubs or Sox?
Like the North and the South need more to rival about.
Jane.
No, that's like Solomon.
Okay.
I'll pick the Bulls.
Okay, she's from the North Side. Your father would want you to be. Your father would want you to be a Sox fan, but when you moved north, you became a Cubs fan.
No,
thick or thin
Solomon.
pizza.
I like vegetarian soul food or.
All right, I'm really getting Jane.
Okay, no pizza. I gotta be honest.
Okay.
No pizza.
Lake or river?
Again, both. Chicago wouldn't be Chicago without the lake and
Sears
the river.
or Hancock?
Well, look, Saks on Paint was up against Sears for like 50, 60 years.
Okay.
And Hancock's a great building, so I pick Hancock, hands down.
16-inch or 12-inch softball?
Well, I got a 2.5-year-old, so big balls are better right now. So 16 inch.
There. That wasn't that hard. Okay. Jane Sachs, Project Ann, Pan, next week at Garfield Conservatory, Park District Facility.
Thank you.
Your first opera.
I know.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Sure.
You've been listening to Chicago Stories with Mayor Rahm Emanuel. You can subscribe and leave a review on Apple Podcasts and tweet your guest ideas using #ShyStories. Thanks for listening.